All right, peace. I'm back. Salam alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak. I hope everybody had a good Ramadan. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. This video is revisiting Malcolm X, but I want to talk about the Muslim Mosque Incorporation, okay, and Mosque number 7. So I tried to dig as much information as I possibly could related to the subject matter, but so I got some books. I got some article, and one of the article is the FBI files of Malcolm X. Okay, so yeah, you can find that publicly online. All right, but before I get started, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, share the channel, like the channel, all that great stuff. Let people know about my channel. And thank you guys who have been subscribing. Thank you guys who have been tuning in. So with that being said, this is your girl Tiffany, and I'm coming through. So please make sure y'all tune in. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So what I want to do is I want to talk about what is the Muslim Mosque Incorporation. Okay. I don't think many people know about this. A lot of people thought that, Malcolm just still stayed with the Nation of Islam after he then got kicked out or put on silent for 60 days, 90 days, or whatever. And there's more to it. Okay, there's a little bit more to it. So now let's look at this. All right, so I'm on this page, and I'm going to see what the document on Wiki mentioned. So it says Muslim Mosque Incorporation. Right, so it was an Islamic organization formed by Malcolm X after he left the Nation of Islam. MMI was a relatively small group that collapsed after its founder was assassinated. So here's the history. It says Malcolm X announced the establishment of the Muslim Mosque Incorporated on March 12, 1964, 4 days after his departure from the Nation of Islam. The group's membership consists primarily of former Nation of Islam members. In 2003, interview, one of its former leaders recalled that MMI started with a core of about 50 dedicated activists. Malcolm X spent much of his time between March of 64 and February of 65 overseas. In his absence, James 67S Shabazz served as a de facto leader of the Muslim Mosque Incorporation. All right. So between March 1964, he left the Nation of Islam, and in February 1965, he was assassinated. Malcolm X's philosophy evolved as he traveled through Africa and the Middle East. Those changes confused many members of the Muslim Mosque Incorporation. Initially, the teachings of Muslim Mosque Incorporation were similar to those of the Nation of Islam. When members became a Sunni Muslim, when Malcolm X became a Sunni Muslim, made the Hajj and wrote to the members of the MMI from Mecca about his pilgrimage and how it forced him to reject the racism that had previously characterized his views of white people. Many members could not believe what they were hearing. The Nation of Islam had taught that no white people were permitted in the holy city of Mecca. Some MMI's members refused to believe that Malcolm X had become a Sunni, and others thought he was being misquoted when he wrote about white people. It goes on to say that May of 1964, membership in Muslim Mosque had grown to 125, and the group was attracting people who were not former Nation of Islam members. Malcolm X sought acceptance of Muslim Mosque Incorporation by a mainstream Islamic organization. In August of 1964, the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs awarded 20 scholarships to permit young MMI members to study at Al-Azhar University, which is in Egypt. By the way, that's in Egypt. And this is for tuition free. Also in August, MMI was admitted to the Islamic Federation of the United States and Canada. The following month, the World Islamic League offered 15 scholarships through MMI for the study at the Islamic University of Medina. Right? So following the assassination of Malcolm X, in February of 1965, Muslim Mosque Incorporation it floundered and was disbanded. The Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, located at 130 West 113th Street in Harlem, is a successor to the Muslim Mosque Incorporation. All right, so So that's the history of. So yes, when Malcolm left the Nation of Islam, he started the Muslim Mosque Incorporation. He didn't have that many members. Most of those members were those who were previous members of the NOI. All right, and it's short-lived. However, the Muslim Mosque Islamic Brotherhood came into existence. Now, what's the great thing about this was that Malcolm and Warith Deen Muhammad had a good relationship. You know, Warith Deen Muhammad had much respect for Malcolm. He really did. And he saw the direction that Malcolm was trying to go, right? So I think that was one of his inspiration of getting into the Sunni Islam, because he saw Malcolm doing that. And he was wondering, and so the Masjid that is known as Mosque 7, he renamed it after Malcolm, okay, when he took over the Nation of Islam. So the original Nation of Islam was under Warith Deen Muhammad, all right? They became American Muslim Society under his leadership. So the Nation of Islam that you guys know of today is Louis Farrakhan version. I'm going to say again, the Nation of Islam that you guys know of today is Mr. Louis Farrakhan version of it. And then there's multiple versions of Nation of Islam. You got the New Nation of Islam. You got the United Nation of Islam. You got Arab Muhammad's. You got Salih Muhammad version of Nation of Islam. It's so many Nation of Islams out. Okay. But the most popular one that we know is Louis Farrakhan version. All right. So he took the old teaching of Elijah Muhammad and he used it, and he even came up with his own doctrine added on to it. Okay. So after Elijah Muhammad passed away in 1975, Farrakhan started his own version and been around ever since. So boom, there you go. All right. So now let me show you guys this FBI file real fast. Okay, so as you can see, let's go up where it says Guide to the Microfilm Edition on the FBI file on Malcolm X. Okay, so you know the FBI been following him for a long time. So it goes into the introduction. All right, so it says that he was born Malcolm Little on May 19, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska to Earl and Louisa Little. From early childhood, he observed firsthand the hatred and ignorance aimed towards people of his race. He had a combination of his mother's fair skin. She was often mistaken for white, and his father's very dark skin, and he was frequently teased about his appearance. Okay. Early class pictures show him as the only black child among many white classmates. So his family were victimized by the Ku Klux Klan. Their house was burnt to the ground, and Earl Little died in the emergency room after police found him severely wounded at a trolley station. Officials reported that he had been crushed by a trolley, but Malcolm agreed with his mother, who believed that Earl had been murdered by white men. Malcolm held on to that belief and later became convinced that the hate group Black Legion was responsible. Louisa suffered a breakdown after her husband's death, was institutionalized. All right, so it goes on to say that the remainder of Malcolm's childhood was spent in detention home until he finally joined his sister in Boston in 1946. He was sent to prison for burglary. It was here that he was converted to the Nation of Islam. Upon his release in 1952, he moved to Chicago, home of the Nation Islam headquarters, where he met its leader, Muhammad, and changed his last name to X. Dropping the last name was a tradition within the NOI followers who felt that their family names descended from the white slaveholders. In 1958, Malcolm married Betty Sanders, another NOI member, and together they had 4 children. Okay. All right, so the NOIs often sent Malcolm on speaking tours, a move that helped to increase membership within the movement. His talent expanded beyond speaking when in 1961 he founded an official publication for the movement, Muhammad Speaks. So if y'all didn't know, Muhammad Speaks, right? He founded that. Not Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm X founded Muhammad Speaks newspaper, all right? Remember that. Now check this out. It says, as Malcolm's popularity increased, he developed a following and was appointed minister of Harlem's popular mosque number 7. His teaching at that time discouraged integration and encouraged violence to maintain separatism. He opposed those civil rights leaders who advocated nonviolence due to his rising popularity. However, other Black Muslim leaders within the Nation Islam became increasingly jealous. He was finally suspended from the movement and in March of 1964 left the Nation Islam altogether to form his own movement, all right, which is called the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. This group followed the Orthodox Islamic religion, to which Malcolm reaffirmed his conversion in October of that same year. Even his former views changed as he came to envision a brotherhood between Blacks and whites. However, his new group was not successful in attracting members, especially since he did not try to recruit any of his earlier followers. He made in a second attempt by forming another group, the Organization of Afro Unity, an attempt that did not yield any better success with a weak membership and organizational elements. All right. So the Organization of Afro-American Unity was something that he started with Dr. John Henry Clark. All right. So now, and here it goes on to say, by January 1965, violence against Malcolm and his followers began to escalate. Many previous NOI members were brutally beaten, some killed. Malcolm spent much time abroad, but on February 5th announced that there will be an OAAU rally held on February 21st, at which he would describe a new militant action program. He never got that chance. Violence between his followers and Black Muslims escalated until Malcolm was shot at the rally in Harlem on February 21st, 1965 by 3 Black Muslims who were later convicted. The document reproduced here were drawn from the Washington files of FBI and have been released under the Freedom of Information Act. Certain documents or a portion of documents have been deleted by the FBI pursuant to provisions of the legislation. The material has been filmed in the exact orders and condition in which it was released. Although every effort has been made to publish the most legible copies available, the files are in approximate chronological order, and the FBI did not index documents. The roll notes is not a complete inventory of files. It is, however, an indication of the type of material or specific documents that may be particularly worthwhile for research. All right. Peace, brother. How you doing? Thank you for coming through. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so as you can see, these are the FBI files, all right? All right, from Session 1, 1953 to 1955, subject of security investigation due to communist tie, Communist Party activity with Black Code of Islam, Muslim Code of Islam, background and arrest record. All right, so going down here, it says, the Internal Security Nation Islam activities as Minister of NOI Temple, New York City, activity in various U.S. city. Interview published in Los Angeles Herald Dispatch, column under heading God's Angry Men, as printed in Los Angeles Herald Dispatch. All right, so let's go down. So as you can see, they've been following him throughout his life. Ever since he joined the Nation Islam, they've been following this man. All right, so check this out. They've been following him up to the time of his death. Imagine that. So it says 1963, Internal Security Nation Islam radio interview, Washington, D.C. May of 1963, takeover of NOI Temple No. 4. Newspaper article, Malcolm X scores U.S. and Kennedy separation of race urged by Malcolm X. All right. And you can see. Hey, peace, brother Vinyasa. How you doing? Thank you for coming through. Thank you. As you can see, the file goes to January to May 1964. Nation Islam split between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad. Transcript of interview, Playboy magazine. Association with heavyweight champ Cassius Clay, who later became Muhammad Ali. Former Black Muslim aid forming new group in internal security. All right, so then it goes down to say Internal Security Nation Islam include telegram to J. Edgar Hoover. Do something about Malcolm X. Enough of this Black violence in New York. Magazine article, The Cult of Malcolm X by James A. Willinser attendance and participation at NOI meetings and affairs activity with the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, association with sports figure Cassius Clay and Jim Brown. Yeah, they've been following this man. And then it talks about July to October 1964, Muslim Mosque Incorporated. Excerpt from the interview, Omaha World Herald, characterization of MMI and NOI Mosque number 7, newspaper, Amsterdam News. Yeah. They followed him up to the time of his death. All right. And then it goes on and on and on and on. It goes on and on. Yep. So that's the FBI files, as you can see. Let me go ahead and zoom it up for y'all so y'all can see that. That's the files right there. I don't even have to go any further, but yeah, they've been following that man from the time that he joined the nation to the time that he died. And even after he passed, they still kept ties on the membership. So imagine that this man being followed all his life. I hope everything going well with you, Brother Vinyasa. Thank you for coming through. And this man been followed. You know, J. Edgar Hoover made sure that he had to keep a close eye on all of the black organizations, social movement, religious group out there. He made sure he kept a close eye on them. He made sure that they would watch every single time. So, you know, Malcolm was looked at as a threat. All right, and I'm going to show you guys another book. But before I go there, let me show you the name of the mosque, right? This is a beautiful masjid. Okay, so this is the masjid that is named after Malcolm X today. Okay. The name of it is the Masjid Malcolm Shabazz, formerly known as Mosque number 7. It's a Sunni Muslim mosque in Harlem, New York. It was formerly Nation Islam Mosque where Malcolm X preached until he left it for Sunni Islam in 1964. That was something back then. I still continue to celebrate Malcolm X's birthday forever. Oh, yeah. His birthday is always celebrated. You know what I'm saying? Every year they have a celebration for Malcolm. They normally have the festival out here where I'm at. So around his birthday time. So yeah, I think it's very necessary. I mean, because if you can celebrate Dr. King, why can't you not celebrate Malcolm? You know? So I think all of them should be celebrating Malcolm, Marcus Garvey, so many others. You know what I mean? They really have done a lot of work, you know? All right, let's go down here. So where it says that Mosque of Malcolm Shabazz, formerly known as Mosque number 7, is a Sunni Muslim mosque in Harlem, New York. It was formerly a Nation of Islam mosque where Malcolm X preached until he left it for Sunni Islam in 1964. That's cool. That's what's up. Y'all got the same birthday. That is what's up. You know, I have the same birthday as Fred Hampton. Me and Fred Hampton was born on the same day. That's cool. I was born on August 30th. He was born on August 30th. That's sweet. That's unique. All right. And it says that opened as Temple Number 7 of the Nation Islam at the Harlem YMCA in 1946, All Nation Islam site was initially called Temples. The NOI switched to the term mosque as a move to add to the nation legitimacy by adding elements from mainstream Islam. It was moved to Lennox Casino at 102 West 116th Street on the southwest corner of Lennox Avenue, and it was just a storefront in 1954 when Malcolm was named minister by Elijah Muhammad. When Malcolm X split from Elijah Muhammad in 1994, he started a Sunni Muslim mosque named the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. The successor to that mosque is the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood Incorporation at 130th West 113th Street in Harlem. So in January of 1964, Elijah Muhammad stripped Malcolm of his offices. Muhammad promoted James 3S as the new minister of Mosque Number 7. Temple Number 7 was destroyed in a bombing in 1965 after Malcolm X's assassination, which forced Nation Islam to move the mosque to 106 West 127th Street. The building was redesigned by Shabazz Brown, and in 1976, the mosque was renamed Malcolm Shabazz Mosque by Warith Deen Muhammad, the new leader of the Nation of Islam, or Masjid Malcolm Shabazz, to honor the memory and contribution of Malcolm X. So in 1972, the mosque was the location of a controversial police shooting. So now we're gonna go into about the police shooting and whatnot. But it's very funny that we all got the same birthdays as some of these politicians or the activists or whatnot. So it's funny that I have a birthday as Fred Hampton. My brother Cool to the Fullest got the same birthday as Malcolm X. And Beyonce ended up having the same birthday as Hillary Clinton. That's really messed up, ain't it? But let's talk about this controversial shooting real fast, because let's get to that part. All right, so there was a shooting that took place in 1972 at Harlem Mosque incident. So it says the 1972 Harlem Mosque shooting occurred on April 14, 1972, when a New York City Police Department officer was shot and fatally wounded at the Nation of Islam Mosque Number 7 in Harlem, Manhattan, New York City, United States. The officer responded to take a fake emergency call, but was shot and died from his wounds 6 days later. The incident sparked political and public outcry about mishandling of the incident by the NYPD and the administration of Mayor John V. Lancey. All right, so the incident happened on April 14th, right, which just passed, April 14, 1972, at a 10 to 13 or officer call for assistance from a man claiming to be a Detective Thomas was received by police. The call came from 102 West 116th Street, the Nation Islam Mosque Number 7, where Malcolm X was once a minister before his conversion to Sunni Islam. Officer Philip Cardillo and Vito Navarra of the New York City Police Department's 28 responded, entering the mosque. When they arrived, they heard scuffling on the floor above. As they made their way to a staircase, they were intercepted by 15 to 20 men who forced the officers to retreat down the stairs and back into the hallway. Officer Victor Padilla and Ivan Negron on the 25th precinct arrived and entered the premises. The 4 officers were outnumbered and were then attacked. Navarro was able to escape as a steel door was closed, trapping Cardillo, Padilla, and Negron. Wow. So it says, according to the NYPD, the officers were attacked by around 15 to 20 congregants, were beaten and stripped of their guns. Padilla was then beaten and blackjacked into semi-consciousness while his partner fought off several men who were trying to grab his revolver. With his back to the door, Negron suddenly heard shots. He turned and saw a man with a gun in his hand who seemed to be getting up from the floor where Cardillo now lay shot. Damn. Cardillo had been assaulted, stripped of his firearm, and was shot at point blank range. Negron managed to free himself from his attackers, drew his revolver, and fired 3 shots. It is not known if the man with the gun was hit. He escaped. Officer Rudy Andre of the 28th Precinct broke the glass on the front metal door and saw the patrolmen inside on their backs. He fired several shots through the broken glass into the hallway, which scattered the men who had been assaulting the officers, thus enabling Negron to unbolt the double metal door. During the melee, Cardillo and Padilla were seriously injured. I don't think many people know about this story except those who was around back in the day. It says Mosque representative maintained that the officers entered with guns drawn and interrupted prayer despite repeating requests to leave their guns outside. During the initial attempt to enter the mosque, police officers, including Navaria, claimed that prior to being forced out, they witnessed a man named Louis 17S Dupree standing over the dying Cardillo with a gun in his hand. After reinforcements arrived, allowing police to retake the mosque. Dupree and several others were initially arrested at the scene. However, before Dupree could be taken into custody, Louis Farrakhan and Congressman Charles Rangel arrived at the scene, threatening a riot if Dupree was not released. Oh, let's see. What else can we find? It says the NYPD chief of detectives, Albert Seaman, was the ranking officer at the scene. He said years afterwards that he called Chief Inspector Michael Cobb from the basement and asked for 2 busloads of police cadets to be armed only with nightsticks to keep the peace outside. Cobb, Seaman said, refused, hung up the phone, and would not take Seaman's subsequent calls. Soon after, more officers arrived on the scene. An angry mob began to form around the police barricade and began pelting officers with projectiles and called them pigs. Several high-ranking police officers ordered all officers out of the mosque and sent away all white officers. It was hours later before 300 or 500 people were able to peacefully exit from the mosque. After negotiation, due to lower police force and a still angry crowd, police abandoned the scene. Right, and it says a promise was made by Rangel and Farrakhan, according to Seaman, that Dupree and the other suspects would turn themselves into 24th Police Precinct the following day, though none ever did. Rangel denies making such a promise. A new police policy was summarily enacted, identifying the mosque as sensitive location, thus preventing an investigation into the shooting for 2 years. Officer Cardillo died 6 days later at St. Luke's Hospital as a result of his wounds. In a decided break with tradition, neither Mayor John V. Lancey nor the police commissioner at the time, Patrick V. Murphy, attended Officer Cardillo's funeral. Well, they obviously were scared. That's why they didn't attend to the funeral. The detective Thomas from the original false alarm 1013 call was never identified. Many of the officers of the NYPD, including Detective Randy Jurgensen, who was the Carlito case lead detective, believed the fake call to be either a diversion or a trap, possibly set by elements of the Black Liberation Army, which the NYPD blamed for numerous murders of police officers. Others have suggested that the fake call was a pretext call from an FBI informant intended to spark dissent under the COINTELPRO program. So according to Cardillo's family, police investigators failed to follow procedure in investigating the shooting due to political pressure. Officers in the basement, directed by Chief Seaman, released a dozen suspects in the shooting without identifying them. The release of the suspects severely hampered the investigation. Farrakhan later stated that the officers charged in 2 hour temple like criminals and were treated like criminals. Ooh. Then it goes on to say that trial 2 years after the shooting, prosecutors brought charges against the mosque school's dean, Louis 17S Dupree, after an informant who witnessed the incident testified against him. Subsequent to the first trial, culminating in an hung jury, Dupree was acquitted at the second, largely because ballistic evidence could not be recovered, and Dupree's attorney made the argument that either Cardillo shot himself or that he was shot by another police officer. And here's the aftermath. In 2012, local police officer proposed to the Manhattan Community Board 10 that part of the street in front of the mosque be renamed after Officer Cardillo. Albert Seaman said he decided to retire that day as he was walking back to his car and dodging bricks being thrown at him. He claimed at the time that his retirement had nothing to do with the incident. In 2013, however, a year before his death, he admitted that his disgust with Codd's refusal to provide the extra officers was his real reason, and he did not want to say so at the time because I love the police department so much that I couldn't drag it through the dirt by saying what those bastards did. All right, so as you can see, you can find the references down here at the very bottom. You can find they talk about it in New York Times. Nation Islam mosque killing of NYPD cops still a mystery 37 years later. That's New York Daily News. All right, so here is further reading at the very bottom. Wow. I never knew about that. To be honest with you, I never heard about a police officer got killed at Mosque number 7. And that's surprise. It's very surprising to this day they haven't found the killer. They haven't found who the person that was responsible for the killing of the police officer at Mosque number 7. I just thought I had to read on some of that information. But anyways, let's go ahead. Let's continue. So let's go into the books. But before I go there, here is the documentation, right? It's called Sunni Islam in the African American Experience, the dialectic and dialogue of race, ethnicity, and Islamacy, mapping and decoding the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood from 1964 to 2001 by Amir al-Islam. Okay. All right, so this was his dissertation in partial fulfillment of requirement for a degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Department of History, New York University, January 2010. Okay, so the advisor was Professor Michael Gomez. As you see, I only got the preview, so I don't really have the book. All right, but that was a dissertation. And as you can see, here's the pictures. All those who are Muslim. You got Elijah Muhammad. You got Sheikh Abdul Fazal. Okay. Farrakhan. Noble Drew Ali. All right. So just name a few. I don't know the rest. And you got Dusay Ali Muhammad. Okay. All right, so here's a table of content. Mapping the Tehran Islam in America, mapping immigrant Muslim, mapping African-American Muslim arguments. These thesis postulates suppositions, theorizing African-American Muslim identity, African-American Sunni Islam, origins, transition, and trajectories. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, from Sheikh Alima Al-Hajj K. Akman Takafi to Al-Hajj Talib Abdul Rashid. Okay. All right, so All right, so let's just go down. Let's see what they talking about. Chapter 1. All right, so chapter 1. According to the United Nations World Population Report 2006, Islam is the second largest religion in the world with over 1.6 billion adherents. Christianity remained the world's leading faith with approximately 2 billion followers. Provide all groups are counted together. In fact, it was reported in the Vatican's yearbook of statistics of 2008 that Muslims now outnumber Catholics. In an interview with the January 2008 Vatican newspaper, Mizongner Votirio Formenti stated that for the first time in history, we are no longer at the top. Muslims have overtaken us. And despite a widespread and pervasive negative characterization of Islam and Muslims stemming from the rise of global terrorism, Islam still reported to be the world's fastest growing religion, claiming a significant number of new converts daily, particularly in Africa, but throughout the other parts of the world as well. And contrary to popular belief, the majority of the Muslims are not Arabs from the Middle East. They are in Asia, in countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. Moreover, within the last 50 years, Islam has gained significant presence in most Western countries, with rapidly expanding Muslims population in France, England, and the United States. The French Ministry of Interior estimate that currently there are over 4.1 million born Muslims living in France, with approximately 40,000 converts, most of who are North Africans. According to England's 2001 census, Islam is the second largest religion in the UK, with over 2.4 million adherents, primarily South Asians. On the Council on American-Islamic Relations, America's leading civil rights and Muslim advocacy group in Washington, D.C. reported that there are 7 to 9 million Muslims in the U.S., although this figure is contested by the PEW Charitable Trust Study on Muslim in Americas. Moreover, it is the American landscape which provides the context for this dissertation project. All right. So let's go down. Let's see. All right, so let's go down to where it says the phase of Sunni Orthodox. All right, the phase of Sunni Orthodox, however, was canonized in America in 1960 by Imam Taqi, a self-identified African-American Sunni Muslim, coined the expression primarily to distinguish African-Americans who adhere to the traditional precepts of Islam from those of members of the Nation of Islam, and others whose theological teachings did not conform to Islamic orthodoxy. While African-American Sunni Islam is the central focus of this dissertation, it is Imam Taqi and the organization that he founded, the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood in Harlem, New York, that it is focal point. And through its elevation, it is asserted more complex and heretofore undisclosed issue within African-American Islam, all right, will be discovered and revealed. For it is the contention of this research that African-American Sunni Muslim identity consists of a construction of selectively appropriated histories and legacy, coupled with notions of race, ethnicity, and Islamity. It is perpetuated that the dialectic and dialogue of race, ethnicity, and Islamity have been major factors in determining how African-American Muslims have historically converted or reverted to, evolved from, transitioned into, or resurrected from. A concept developed by former members of the NOI. All right, so one Islamic formation to another, and very often have determined the extent to which they have cooperated with each other or engaged in conflict. In addition, it is the same dialectic and dialectic that have been determining factors on how African-American Muslims have attempted to navigate differences and constructing multiple, shifting, and often alternative identities. These identities are often centered in the construct of race. Yet, in the case of In the case of many African American Muslims, they also extended beyond the boundaries and fault lines of both race and ethnicity. African American Sunni Muslims constitute the largest population of Muslims in America and account for the largest number of converts to the faith over the years. Social scientists and scholars of Islam and Muslim society have debated the meaning and process of conversion, what they refer to as Islamization. According to Edward E. Curtis, the fourth professor of religion at Purdue University, scholars have remapped Islamization and no longer subscribe to the view that conversion to Islam is a process by one changes belief and all pre-Islamic beliefs are totally replaced by Islamic tenets. So historians and anthropologists such as Richard Eaton, Devin DeReese, and William Cummins within the last decade have begun to rethink and reconceptualize the way in which communities embrace and practice Islam, the process of Islamization. All right. Okay, so abandoning the notion of Mecca-centric approach, which casts those who fail to adhere to the strict teaching of Muslim heartland as fake Muslim, these scholars reject the analysis that measure as group Islam by how close they are to idealized, essentialized orthodoxy. All right. So this is the preview of the dissertation about the Sunni Islam in African American experience. Okay, you can find it at ProQuest. So I will make sure that I put up the information in the description box for those of you that are interested. All right. Okay, so there's a book by Aminah Beverly McCloud. It's called African American Islam. So I only have the preview, but here it talks about the early communities, contemporary communities from 1960 to present, the family structure of domestic life, social issue and challenges, the tension between Durda Islam and Durda Arab, women Islam in conclusion. All right, so that's the introduction. Well, let's look at the intro before I go. Yeah. So this text is an introduction to some of the diverse community histories, beliefs, and practices that compare beliefs and practices that comprise African American Islam. The African American Islamic population consists of from 1.5 to 4.5 million persons distributed across at least 17 distinct communities and comprises the single largest ethnic group amongst Muslims in America. The presence of Islam among African Americans can be traced to the earliest days of their forcible exploitation to this continent. Although Western literature has encouraged the notion that most African slaves practiced traditional African religions and were first introduced to monotheism via Christianity, the areas in West Africa that were raped for slaves were in fact predominantly Muslim and had been so for 600 to 700 years prior to the slave trade. Hence, contrary to the orthodoxy beliefs, a large portion of the Africans brought to this country as slaves were Muslim, and this fact is becoming increasingly clear through the discovery, translation, and interpretation of Arabic slave narratives. That is a fact. So if you have an ancestor, especially someone who is Hausa and Fulani, okay, or maybe Igbo, but particularly Hausa and Fulani people, and they came from Senegambia area, 9 times out of 10 they were Muslim. 9 times out of 10 they were Muslim, all right? Because a lot of those Muslims came from Senegambia area. A lot of them were a Fulani tribe and Hausa, okay, and Mandinka. So if you had a lot of that in you, 9 times out of 10 you got a descendant that's Muslim and you don't even know about. And it's kind of interesting that people, try to like throw shade at the Muslim community or Islamic community and don't realize that, yeah, you come from those people. You come from those who are more likely than Muslim, that was Muslim than anything else. You know, so you come from those who were practicing Islam and also practicing the African tradition. That's the interesting part about but that's the part that people don't have a conversation about. So this is something that you guys have to look it up for yourself. And don't take my word for it, but just look it up. All right. So that's the introduction. And then she goes on to say, let me stop. I'm gonna start right here at the third paragraph. Okay. The story of African American Islam is both complex and evolving. In order to provide the groundwork for a coherent account of this story, it is necessary to begin with some historical, terminological, and thematic remarks concerning both Islam in general and African American Islam in particular. For readers who lack important background in Islam, it is necessary to begin with some basic remarks about this major world religion. At the most general level, Islam may be defined as the ongoing act of submitting one's individual will to the will of Allah, the sole God and the creator of all worlds. All right. Although one finds considerable diversity in Islamic expression amongst different communities worldwide for introductory purpose, we can highlight certain core beliefs and practices as definitive features of the Islamic worldview. Okay. So it says the Islamic worldview centered on what Muslims consider the last revelation from Allah to mankind, to humankind. The Quran, which means the recitation. The bearer of this recitation was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, a 7th century Arab who is regarded as the last of Allah's prophet. In Islamic literature, the letters PBUH, which means peace be upon him, always follow the Prophet Muhammad's name, meaning may peace and blessing of Allah be upon him. First and foremost is acknowledge that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. A Muslim is one who struggles to submit his or her will to the will of Allah, which is spelled out in Quranic narratives of historical recountings of incident in past eras and details of the guidance provided to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his efforts to deliver the recitation. Islam demands that Muslims gain discipline in their struggle through a series of core practices. This set of practices includes the Shahada, or initial acknowledgement of the deity as noted above. The second is Salat, which is the form of worship wherein believers pray and seek guidance 5 times a day while engaging continuously in Quran recitation. The third one is Swam, which is a fast wherein believers refrain from food, drink, idle talk, behavior, and worldly pleasure from sunrise to sunset for 30 days, the month of Ramadan. Fourth is Zakat, a constant awareness of what is accumulated during the year so that the assessed is taxed and shared with the community at a rate of 2.5% at the end of the month of Ramadan. The fifth one is Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca in order to reenact the major events described in the Quran that predates and sustained the first Muslim community. Each of these acts contributes to the discipline necessary for the submission of the Muslim will, and together they combine to affect a worldview that has Allah's will at the center. A portion of Allah's will focuses on personal behavior with regard to oneself, other Muslims, and non-Muslims, such as prohibition on the ingestion of pork and alcohol, fornication, adultery, and immodest dress and behavior. For Muslims, this social discipline and etiquette is known as adab. A much larger focus is given to the establishment of justice in the world. This is elaborated in terms of upholding the right and forbidding the wrong. Right and wrong are often explained by the incidents of what went on in communities before the community of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, communities that permitted greed, avarice, corruption, and sexual license were destroyed as punishment for their turning away from divine guidance. All right, so I'm just going to leave it right here. So this book is called African American Islam, Aminah, Beverly, McCloud. So I'm going to make sure I post that in the description link. Let me go ahead to the comments. Okay, but yeah, make sure you buy it and then you tell somebody about it. All right, so This is why in South America, a term was coined bozals, which basically means European powers start seeking African people with no attachment to Christianity or Islam. Bozales. Okay, bozales. Also, they was looking for those who were considered as what's it called? Animist that practice animism. Basically, those who were practicing animism and African traditional spirituality, sort of. So that was the European one to gain power over those people versus those who were into Christianity and Islam. That's an interesting information right there, Vinyasa. I'm gonna look more into that terminology. Wow. All right, so this book, I won't really go that deep into, but this book right here is called Africana Faith. Okay, this book is called Africana Faith: A Religious History of African American Crusade in Islam by James L. Conyers Jr. So I'll make sure I also post the title of this book in the description section as well. Not necessarily that it was used to enslave Africans, just as wild Africans regardless their practices. So it was much easier to enslave those who were non-traditional practitioners of religion, basically. Oh, basically a precursor to all racial terms and the idea of dehumanizing us. Okay, got you. Got you. Got you. No different from calling us porch marky, tar babies, and George, and all these different terms. No different than that. Basically, to bring about social stigmas. Yeah. Okay, I got you. I got you. So yeah, this book right here is called Africana Faith. So of course it goes into the history about the African American Islam. So I'm not really going to go into that book, but I'm just going to. So what I'm going to do is I just make sure that I post it in the description link. Right. I got you. I got you on that. Got you. Okay. This book right here, some of y'all may have this book or some of y'all may not be familiar with it. This book is called Islam in Black America: Identity, Liberation, and Difference in African American Islamic Thought by Edward E. Curtis IV. All right. So you guys check this book out. And again, I make sure that I'll post that in the description section as well. So the loophole becomes seeking those with no knowledge of those ideology. Yeah, because it's much easier to get to those who have no concept of those ideologies. So that way you can, I can't think of the term. It starts with a P, but that way you can enforce your ideology on them per se, or you can indoctrinate them pretty much. You can indoctrinate people. So it's easy to indoctrinate those who may not have any idea about those Abrahamic religion. Over time, the word become bozo. What a terminology. What a terminology. All right. Okay. So yeah, that's all the information that I have. Like I said, I'm gonna make sure that I post them in the description section, the little description box, whatever. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, watching this channel. Thank you all for y'all support. I really appreciate that a lot. So Make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, like the channel, all that great stuff. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off saying peace and power, elevation be to all of you. Please be safe, and Ramadan Mubarak. I hope everybody enjoy their fast, and I hope everybody enjoy their evening. So y'all just relax and just chill, all right? So till next time, this your girl Tip, and I'm logging off saying peace, salam alaikum, Rabah Hotel, and Alafie, Islam. Peace out, deuces, all that. All right, y'all be safe.